Call this meeting the North Adams City Council order for November 13th. This meeting is being recorded. Will the clerk please take roll?
Bona,
Here.
Buddington,
Here.
Cohen, Harpen,
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
LaForest,
Here.
Lamb,
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
And Lee present.
Please stand for a moment of silence, remembering Donato Dagnoli, former city councilor from 1960 to 1965 in Ward 7, and Raymond Godet Jr., school psychiatrist in the North Adams school system. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from October 23rd.
Motion to accept the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Paper number 11,723, request from H.A. George for a public hearing to install additional tanks at the 651 Ashland Street location. I'm going to open the public hearing. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any. We will close the hearing. Paper number 11,723, an order granting permission to H.A. George to install additional tanks at 651 Ashland Street. Motion to grant.
So moved. Second.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, so move.
Second.
Second. Discussion. Yes.
Just curious, how many tanks are we talking about?
The Georges are here if they'd like to get up and speak.
Sure.
Go to the mic first. Name and address for the record.
Rice George, 662 Ashland Street. Currently, we have a 30,000 and 18,000 gallon tank, which filled to 80% is full for each of the tanks. So our plan is for the future is maybe over the next year, add additional 30,000. And if business continues the way things are, then possibly an additional 30,000 after that. Each time we do these things, we would have to kind of go through the state and our local fire chiefs, make sure everything is to code, NFPA code. So it's not like we're just do this when we feel like it's done. It's each time we do this, we're gonna have to, go through the right means and through, local and state authorities to make this right.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any discussion for the public? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Here. Yeah. Yes. And I'm here too. Yes.
All right.
We motion carries. Order granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paper number 11,407-2A, report of General Government Committee submitted by Councilor Buddington. Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And discussion. You want to, Councilor Buddington, you want to summarize
It's
it?
kind of a lot to summarize. I can say that I had hoped that we'd be able to wrap up the Public Arts Commission issue that evening, but there was significant interest in further public discussion, so we are going to have another joint meeting with the Public Arts Commission on Monday, the
19th?
19th?
Yes.
Is that a Monday? To continue that.
Yes.
And the other two issues are on the agenda further on, so we can summarize them then, regarding access to council chambers and access to the solicitor.
Okay. Any other discussion? This is just the report, discussion from the public. All in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report accepted. And on to 11,407-2, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article,
34.
thank you, 34, Public Arts Commission of the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams. This was in City Council, October 23rd, 2018, voted to postpone to the meeting of November 13th, 2018. I'm guessing we're going to have a motion to
If we could, I'd like to postpone this to the first meeting in December.
Sounds perfect.
Is that good enough, or you need a specific, you got the date?
Second.
Second? And any other discussion? Discussion from the public? Yes, Mr. Smith, name and address for the record, please.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I'd really like to know why we keep on postponing this item. Can someone please explain that to me?
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just part of the process, Mr. Smith. There's committees, and when things don't get finished up at committees, you know, we set dates and hope that the committees will finalize by then, but when it goes to committee, they don't have all their answers, so those meetings get pushed up, and, you know, it doesn't get rushed, it's just part of the process. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. Motion to postpone to the first meeting in December. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Paper number 11,703-A, a report of the Traffic Commission regarding Church and Bradley Street and the Holden Street. Motion to accept the report.
Motion to accept. Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the report? I mean, we just, let's see. All in favor? Well, right now, there's just a report, so you want to do it on this one, or you want to wait till the next one?
I'll wait.
All in favor of the report?
Aye.
Opposed? Report passed. On to paper number 11,703, Mayor's Communication number 65, in response to Council Paper 11,696 regarding crosswalks at the intersection of Bradley and Church Street. This was in City Council September 25th, 2018. It was voted to refer to Traffic Commission and voted to postpone to the meeting of November 13th. What do we entertain here? A motion to...
Motion to refer to public safety.
Okay, we have a motion to refer to public safety
Second.
and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Any discussion?
So return date of December 11th.
Oh, thank you. Let's amend that, since you got it. That's all right. Second came in, so amendment.
Well,
the
motion
return
to
of-
amend the motion to, with a return date of December 11th.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Back to the motion now. Any other discussion? This is a motion to refer to public safety. Yes, Counselor LaForest.
So I'd like to read the short letter from the Traffic Commission into the record, dated November 5th, 2018, and again, this is regarding the crosswalk at Church and Bradley Street. Dear Council President Bona, at the regular meeting of the Traffic Commission, the crosswalk at Church and Bradley Streets was discussed. The Commission voted against the crosswalk due to the report from the engineering firm. The Commission suggested asking Dufour Bus Company if they could add an extra stop to the Church Street route at Bradley Street so children do not have to cross the road. Goes on the second issue. The second item referred to the Commission from the Holden Street Condominium Group has been tabled to our January meeting to give members time to check the area. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Mary Ann King, Chairwoman. So my intention to refer this to public safety is that there remains a safety issue, and while it may not be appropriate to place a crosswalk there, despite the fact that half a crosswalk is still there, I think the city still needs to do something in terms of notifying drivers that pedestrians may be crossing there. The police director was here several months ago and suggested additional signage, but to date, there hasn't been any placed at that intersection.
Yes, Counselor Wilkinson.
I certainly accepted the report. However, it mentions after hearing the engineering study, there was no detail as to what the negative parts of the engineering study were, so I'm hoping that will come out in committee.
I will say this is This is common practice when reports have come back from Traffic Commission when we're changing ordinances from streets to traffic. Often the report comes back from Traffic Commission and it would go to Public Safety. It's not always, most of the time the council agrees with it, but not always. So this is common practice. Is there any other discussion from council? Councilor Buddington.
I believe the study in question, I think the whole council got that at a previous meeting, and in the short version is just the engineer was of the opinion there wasn't enough sight line to allow a crosswalk at the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit that we have on that street.
Councilor Wilkinson.
And I'm aware of that, and thank
Okay.
you for reminding me. However, I think there's other councilors that have done the same thing. I've gone down there, looked at the sight lines, and I don't see a problem. So it's, we'll see what happens in committee.
Okay. Any discussion from the public? Yes. Mr. Smith, name and address for the record.
Sure. Joseph Smith, 131 Horrigan Road, in Clarksburg. I also own a home in North Adams. The only thing I would just like to say is that through this process, the one thing that disturbs me is that it was reported that the crosswalk was approved through proper process, then the work never actually began, and then there was no communication back that the work wasn't beginning, and the family that brought this up then had to reach out again. I just think that, in regard to this issue, beyond looking at the specifics of this issue, we should probably look at how that process broke and make sure, or try and make sure that that kind of process doesn't break again. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So right now we have a motion to refer to Public Safety with the return date of
December 11th.
December 11th. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Paper number 11,717, communication submitted by Council President regarding parking options for the Holden Street condominium owners. This was in City Council October 9th, 2018. It was voted to refer to Traffic Commission, voted to refer to the Mayor's Office, and voted to postpone to the meeting of November 13th. At this time, Councilor LaForest read the end of the last report, and I think the Traffic Commission is not going to be able to discuss this at least till their January meeting. So I would say we're looking for a motion to postpone to our second meeting in January.
I would actually suggest a motion to postpone to the first meeting of February, depending on when they meet in January.
That's fine.
So motion to postpone to the first meeting of February.
And
Okay.
second.
Second. Do we have any other discussion? Any discussion from the public? Not hearing any.
Mr. President, may I offer
Yep. Oh, sure.
2 points in response? With regard to item 1B in the letter that was submitted to the council, this was regarding the exit from Mountain One Bank and the drive-up window. That has been corrected. There was a review of the site plan with Mountain One, and they did put the no left turn sign back at the exit to the drive-up. So that's one point. And then another point, and I believe the Traffic Commission will weigh into this as well, but there was a reference in the letter to concerns with regard to handicap accessible parking spaces and a suggestion that those be concentrated closer to the Holden Street building. Given the size of that lot, I think a distribution of handicap spaces to meet the needs throughout the lot is advisable, but again, that'll come back through the Traffic Commission. But the critical piece is the one issue that was raised that has been resolved is the Mountain One drive up.
Okay. Any other discussion? This is all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Paper number 11,720, communication submitted by Councilor Buddington regarding use of City Hall for committee meetings. This was in City Council October 9th, 2018. It was voted to refer to the General Government Committee, voted postponed to the meeting of November 13th. Councilor Buddington, what do you want for a motion here?
Well, for the communication, I
Oh, sorry,
assume we
this is just
file
a
that.
communication, sorry. So, motion to accept the communication.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that. So the, is this needs to be amended in their papers, correct?
No, they have an amendment agenda. They have an amendment.
Oh, they have amended agenda? Okay. So on to paper number 11,720. It's a resolution regarding city council meetings and the use of city council chambers. And what would you
Sure,
like
I can just introduce this quickly. This was the result of discussion at the,
do you want a motion first?
oh, I'm sorry. So move to adopt this resolution.
Okay,
Second?
second from Councilor Lamb. And go ahead now.
Okay, thank you. The General Government Committee made these suggestions. If those sharper readers among you may have noticed that the committee wanted this to be in order, but when I went to actually write it up, I recognized that the things we were asking were not specific actions of the mayor for the most part, and so this was the closest I could come to what the committee decided. And very simply, the resolution states that the action items are that the city council and its committees should have priority use of council chambers, and no meetings should be scheduled in the chambers immediately before council meetings. 2, the reservations of the council chambers should be done through the office of the city clerk. And 3, city councilors should have the ability to open and close council chambers. Most of this is already effectively the case. There were some concerns at the expressed at the committee that with the installation of the school offices upstairs, I think expressed also at our last council meeting, that there will be a lot more contention for use of these meeting spaces. And those of us on the committee want to ensure that the council has definite use of these chambers whenever we need them for full council and for committee meetings.
Any other discussion? Councilor LaForest.
I'm not sure why this is a resolution. Resolutions are non-binding. This is a toothless activity. While I don't disagree with what is proposed in the resolution, this should be an order, or better yet, a correction of standard operating procedures within City Hall. So I don't know, again, that the gesture of a resolution is sufficient or really going to accomplish what was intended.
Councilor Buddington and Councilor Harpen.
Oh, I should defer to Councilor Harpen since she hasn't spoken yet.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to agree with Councilor LaForest. I'm not sure if this is the right avenue to take to address the situation. I think we can just communicate with the administration and make some policies or new procedures. It seems like it might be an ongoing thing as things are changing in the building as well, and the school department is coming here, and more people might be available. So it might not be an issue in the future because more people available might be able to open the building. So I would prefer to just leave it as it is and see what happens when the school department comes here and communicate with the administration.
Councilor Wilkins, so I didn't know actually Eric was next.
I think everyone is supposed to speak once before any counselor
okay.
speaks.
Well, no,
second
I
time,
mean,
right?
it's your report, but I
Oh.
mean, Wilkinson,
I
then
can wait.
Lamb, and then
Is there a
Buddington.
motion on the floor?
Yes.
Okay. Then I will
Motion is to accept the resolution.
wait.
Okay.
I guess this is to the chair to the mayor. With these, so some of these are more related to the changes in City Hall once the school department does move into the building. But do any of these three things raise a red flag with you in terms of procedural actions in order to make sure that we do have the secure usage of this space as the council?
Well, I think it's a matter that can be addressed regardless of what the configuration of the building is, what offices are in here. But I would offer that I think this is a resolution that doesn't require a resolution. And, you know, it is a procedure, and it's taking the points and the concerns that were raised and basically putting 3 or 4 bullet points together that say clerk schedules, priority access, here's the process for opening and closing. And I think, you know, we can do that fairly simply between the clerk's office and inspection services to determine how to operate the building.
So, I have no issue passing this, obviously. I seconded it being passed as a resolution, but I do think that these are procedural things that can be done. And, you know, to Councilor Harpen's point, you know, some of this is going to be impacted by the change in the building. But I would say, you know, fairly standard operating procedure currently, I think for most councilors that have scheduled meetings, has been to go through the clerk's office. So sealing that up as a process would make a lot of sense, I think. And then, you know, the not scheduling of meetings before and after would sort of be resolvable by saying, you know, if it's going through the clerk's office only, there's one person, you know, indicating who's in the building or who's in the room at one point or another. So that could be mitigated in that sense as well. I think the third one here, which is the ability to open and close council chambers, might be a little broad, and maybe not by design, because I think during the meeting that we had, or that the general government meeting had, around what that access looks like, it could take many different paths, right? So there's, you know, key access, there's code access, there's staffing access when there's more staffing in the building. So that might be the one that's sort of harder to mitigate in the immediate emergent times, but the other two pieces I do think are more practical, process-based things that, you know, I'm, again, fine passing this resolution, but I think it should inform just changes in practice to make sure that those are sealed up. So that's just my 2 cents in that respect.
Counselor Wilkinson?
I just, after listening to everybody, wonder if this is really necessary. I don't, what may, a more prudent way of handling this is to withdraw the motion and just make another motion to table. It seems that all these issues that are being discussed here can be worked out without a official resolution.
Other counselors? You know, I feel a resolution is basically putting your voice, your what you want on paper, and we're also saying it, so it's also on record. I don't think a resolution is necessary. I think we've spoke, and obviously if we find issues continue forward, then maybe something more precedent needs to be set, but at this point, I personally don't feel we need the resolution. I don't know if it needs to be tabled. I think it can literally be filed.
Well, that's a better term, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And, but I appreciate that the General Government Committee sat down and brought this, you know, and Councilor Buddington, you brought this, you know, forward, because it is a concern. I know I spoke at the meeting, and, you know, I feel like with the school department moving in, some of our available spaces where, when this has been full, where we've had to go before, is we've had meetings upstairs, we've had meeting in the law library, and, you know, the law library is disappearing. So I think on the bottom floor, I'm not sure what's going to be available for meeting spaces, but we're losing those spaces, and I just don't want to lose. What I'm not sure is how, you know, I do know, and I mentioned in Pittsfield, how city council is allowed to bump if they need, you know, they desperately need to get into their space. It sounds easy, but I'm sure if that time comes, it may not be so pleasant. But, I mean, these are our chambers, and, you know, we shouldn't have to be looking to go outside for our meeting because ours are being taken up. So I could go either way. I personally just don't feel we need the resolution. Other counselors? Counselor Buddington.
I agree with Councilor LaForest. Since it is a resolution, it is not an enforceable document. If there is a need to make it into an order, I would only feel comfortable if it could be very specific, you know, very, very definite actions required of the executive branch, and that's what I couldn't find in the discussions of the General Government Committee in order to turn it into an order. I feel the resolution is useful because it is a statement of what we as a council feel we need to do our jobs well. And at the same time, it's clearly not demanding because it is just a resolution.
Any other counselors? Discussion from the public. This is a roll call vote. Please, clerk, call the roll.
Buddington,
Yes.
Arpin,
No.
Hopkins,
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Forrest,
No.
Moran,
No.
Wilkinson,
No.
Bona.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion
Fails.
fails, yes. But I think, Mayor, you got the message, right? Thank you. Bye now. Paper number 8717-35, Mayor's Communication number 83, requesting a public hearing be set for November 27th at 7:30 regarding the percentage of tax levy to be set for FY19. Without objection, we'll set the public hearing for November 27th. Paper number 11,724, Mayor's Communication number 84, recommending the appointment of Rachel Branch to the North Adams Housing Authority for a term to expire July 1st, 2018, to fill the unexpired term of Christopher Tremblay. Motion to confirm.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, Counselor Buddington?
Having had many conversations with Rachel Branch, I support this nomination. I think that she is has strong opinions, and I think they'll be useful to have those on the board.
Other discussion from the public? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Paper number 11,725, Mayor's Communication number 85, recommending the borrowing order in the sum of $351,000 for repairs to the public safety roof. Without objection, file and move to the order. Paper number 11,725, an order authorizing the treasurer with the approval of the mayor to borrow the sum of $351,000 for the purpose of repairs to the roof of the public safety building under MGL Chapter 44, Section 20. We need a motion to publish as required by law.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion. Counselor Lamb, Counselor LaForest, Counselor Wilkinson. Okay. Lamb, LaForest, Wilkinson.
So I through the chair to the mayor and actually anybody else that might be able to speak to this as well. So I think I remember, I don't think I made this up in my head, that there were plans to do a study on potential future public safety building, correct, in that?
There is in the state capital bond bill, money set aside, or, money approved but not appropriated.
Yeah, okay.
But that would not be.
For this.
Even if that money were available, it would not qualify for this project.
Right, and I completely understand that. My question is more getting to kind of the status of that process and if there was any movement there, because I think, one thing that we've noticed for years now is that building, not just because of water issues, but because of other structural and just utilitarian issues, I guess we'll call them, leaky windows, things like that, it's really not ample structure for our public safety officers of any type to be using, at least not for the long haul. So $351,000 is not a small amount of change. And so as we're looking at that long-term plan, I was sort of curious, if we're taking out $351,000 now, what is the payoff on or the timeline for paying that off?
We're looking at doing it as a 20-year borrowing.
Right.
Which is consistent with the life of a roof. That is not consistent with the amount of time we expect that this building would remain in its current function.
Right. And so, again, I think this is an urgent matter. I agree with that. I think it's important that the roof is not leaking. But hearing, 20-year payoff on a $350,000 borrowing order with the goal, I anticipate, of a new or updated building in the nearer future.
Yes.
I'm just trying to kind of process that through and see how can we motivate that process through the state / through other, resource allocations as we're looking forward to make sure that we're, really planning for the true future of our public safety building and not patching and Band-Aiding,
Yeah.
honestly.
So the this is not a strategic investment. This is a deferred maintenance need to begin with. What I can say is that Secretary Bennett from the Executive Office of Public Safety was out here two weeks ago, out here on October 31st, and toured the building with Senator Hines and with Director Moranti and Director Casalio, and saw the building and really got an understanding of the need. Was in Pittsfield as well. They're facing some fairly significant building replacement needs of their own. So getting him out here and seeing that. Now the hard part about that is he doesn't have money for those investments. But what we can do is start a study process, even independent of money, to look at what are the possible solutions. I mean, one question is, would the future of a public safety building of public safety in the city be a single building, or would it be separating police and fire in some way as we went forward? And if we're putting this kind of money into this building, then particularly with a 20-year, is there a way that we can, as we look at the whole thing, retain this building in some form for, if it were fire function and the police moved, or, again, different scenarios that we're starting to look at. But none of that obviates the fact that there's water infiltration, there are the envelope problems, and there are tarps that have been up over the turnout gear for 10 years in the fire department. So just as a matter of necessity, but also as a matter of basic respect for our first responders, this is something that we need to tackle while continuing the planning process. And there's work that we have to and need to do on that now, because if we wait until bond money is appropriated, we'll just be getting older, and the building will continue to have issues. So if we can figure out how to do some of the planning work ourselves, and then when it's for the the design and the siting, then that's where that money could come in.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think it was Counselor, I don't remember, what's it, LaForest? Go ahead.
So Councilor Lamb asked what I would ask essentially, and of course, it is a matter of respect for our firefighters and police officers that we do provide them with a building that is safe and allows them to keep our community safe. That being said, it baffles me that we're at a point where we're discussing both replacing a building and putting a new roof on the building we hope to replace, and I understand that's not necessarily the fault of anyone in this room, so that's not an accusation. But common sense would dictate that if we're looking to replace a building, we don't put a new roof on it, or on the old building. So I hope also, and I certainly not attempting to school anyone, at some point we need to draw a line in the sand here in the city and stop deferring maintenance on everything, because and I know that the mayor is attempting to do that, because it's chasing good money after bad to shore up a building for our police and firefighters, and it's unfortunate that they should probably have had a new building many years ago. And so I hope that through this process we're absolutely moving forward and providing them the facility that they need to do their job. But I would like to, I know not everyone's had an opportunity to speak, but I think this also should be referred to the Public Safety Committee, so that we have an opportunity to tour the building and have a better understanding of what we're voting on in terms of the borrowing order for $351,000. As Councilor Lamb pointed out, that's not a small chunk of change. And so, I hope that we, in the course of this discussion, also modify the motion to, refer to committee and have a tour of the facility.
Mr. President, if I may?
Yes.
I would encourage that, and I think Director Moranti would welcome that.
Sure.
And if you would like to, I'm sure he can speak to some of those issues as well.
Sure.
Counselor Moran, and then Counselor Wilkinson and Hopkins. Okay.
Through the chair to the mayor or Director Moranti, if $350,000 is spent on the roof, are we concerned that there's any other issues that will come about that's gonna be like, oh, we got a brand new roof, and by the way, we're gonna need another $120,000 to replace the back wall? Do we know if is this the major issue that's gonna then, I'm assuming we're not gonna have a new public safety building for, you know, a few years down the line. Is this something that will satisfy both police and fire, or is this kind of turn into next year another problem? I have no problem with the money to house our police and fire, but do we have a sense that the building itself is sustainable for another period of years to come?
Yeah, there are issues.
To the
with
microphone.
building. There's many issues with the building. They've been addressed in the 20-year plan was. You know, the boilers are old, the windows rattle, and the snow blows in through the windows and everything. It's not saying that there aren't major issues with this building. You know, some of the there's electrical issues in the building also. So, to get us through short term, I mean, yeah, we need the roof. You'll see it when you come and visit us. Hopefully it's on a rainy night, or it even leaks when it's not raining, because the insulation is saturated with water and it just kind of seeps through the ceiling, you know. There's issues. We had a mold issue because of the leaks, and we had to have a company come in, and the insurance company came, and the insurance company took care of the demolition and mold remediation. But without fixing the roof, and they're going to pay to have the ceilings put in. You're talking close to $100,000 for all of this work. And if we don't fix the roof, it's just going to happen all again, and that is just going to keep spreading. It's almost like having if you look at the roof itself, it's like having a screen as you're roofing. It's deteriorated so much that, you know, I don't know if that thing on television where the guy's got the boat with the screen, where it's looking down, that's how we've made repairs ourselves. There's a lot of temporary repairs on this. There are a lot of issues with the building. You know, there's ADA issues. We know about the ADA issues that we have. So to say that it's not going to come back, we have to do something with ADA down the road too. But the 1.2 million.
Back to the mic.
We went to a, sorry, I have a tendency of moving around. We went to a public safety conference, and that 1.2 million is right in line with what we're looking for the study, for citing the engineering and design of the facility. It's not like there's anything else out of that money that's what that is designed for, and that's what we're hoping for. And we're looking at, most public safety buildings are a 5 to 10 year design, build, acquisition of property, you know, so it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Thank you.
Counselor Wilkinson, then Counselor Hopkins.
Well, I'm more than happy to take the tour again, but I've been in the building, and it needs to be torn down. I mean, it's just what I'd call beyond its life expectancy, or what we call beyond economic necessity. I have no problems, to be honest with you, but we'll wait to see what happens in committee of appropriating the money, because you're between a rock and a hard place. I think the estimate, it's going to be 5 or 6 years just to design, is probably good, but I can see it going longer. People had an issue about whether we were going to go a 20-year bond out, and God help us, but what if it's still there in 20 years? I mean, it's just, it's a rock and a hard place thing, and unfortunately, I don't like to buy new tires for my car, but I'd rather not buy a new car, so I throw money where it shouldn't be because of necessity. So we'll see what happens in committee, but I'm all in favor of
Counselor
doing the
Hopkins.
money. These answers no doubt will come out in committee or during the tour, but for $350,000, is this just the roof surface? Is there structural work being done? What does that actually pay for?
So it's covered in the estimates or the orders that were included in your packet, but it is, excuse me.
But for those who are hearing about it for the first time and watching.
Yeah, so that's kind of a complete roof replacement. So that's the decking, the
Yeah.
roof board, the insulation, venting, edging.
Right.
So it is a full replacement of the roof.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say 1,000 cans of Flex Seal would cost $12,000. I just looked it up. All right, any other, yes, Councilor LaForest.
Oh. Well, okay, so I just, sorry. So I just
Did I
wanted,
miss somebody?
Yeah, but that's
Well,
fine.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Buddington, sorry.
If I may, through the chair to the mayor, is there an estimate on how quickly this would happen once the borrowing order was approved?
One moment. So assuming we get get everything through fairly quickly, they would be looking at beginning construction in, early January, late February, if weather permits. But they could begin in that time window if the weather conditions allowed.
Okay,
And
thank
there's
you.
probably work that could be done from the bottom up. But don't quote me on that because I'm neither an engineer or a contractor.
Okay.
Councilor LaForest and Councilor Lamb.
So I just want to point out for the folks that are watching at home and in the gallery, referring this to committee doesn't delay the vote because it has to go to a second reading anyhow. So I don't want anyone to think that we're avoiding, this situation and, avoiding voting on this. It does have to go to a second reading before we can vote on it anyhow. So it's important, that we take the tour before that. So can I make the motion or, oops?
So what I was essentially going to say was similar to what Councilor LaForest was going to say, but also to note that committees can act independent of this council. They don't need to be referred things in order to make action. So I would just host a public safety meeting regardless of if it got done as an official request here, since we already because what I don't want to do is necessarily delay this by saying we're not going to go forward with it. So still passing this to a second reading as required by law, and then just to do it between now and the next meeting, we will host a public safety meeting at the facility to do a walkthrough. I don't know that we necessarily have to do another motion to host a meeting if we just agree that we're going to host a meeting.
Sure.
And, everyone is welcome.
Okay,
So that would just be my suggestion. I don't know that we necessarily have to.
So I think what he's saying is you don't have to add to this, refer to public safety.
Correct. So we'll
Public
just
safety
let the
will just be
motion
on its own.
stand as long as we're going to meet prior to the next
Between
meeting.
now and the 27th
okay, that's fine.
or whatever the next meeting is. Yeah.
Any other counselors? This is a tough one. Mayor, I guess my concern is, and again, it feels like it's a case we're not gonna have a choice in this, but I feel like by putting the roof on, it allows us a little bit of comfort to say, well, now we can wait a little longer, this building has been in, bad shape for well over a decade.
Longer.
And I think it would have been on priority on our list if we didn't have the opportunity where DPW building came forward first, So I guess how realistically are we out there at looking for locations in space? Because, I feel like, again, well, now we got the roof, we stopped the leaks, we can hold off, but that's just my concern is it gives us that comfort to keep holding off.
So I'm gonna respectfully disagree, just because this for me, I think, is one of those places where this need is a wake-up call for all of us, that we cannot continue to defer maintenance or defer the decision. So we've started some conversations. We've started looking at these options. There are a couple of other things in public safety that all get put together with this that are really about long-term planning for the department, but facility for me is one of the key ones. So this isn't a place where we make a necessary investment in deferred maintenance. And again, nobody is saying this is where we would want to make a strategic investment in our public safety if the option were ours. But we do have to bite the bullet. We do have to make make this investment just to keep going while we do our planning, while we wait for the state to appropriate funding for the study. But we're not going to wait until the state comes through and says whatever billion was in that economic development or that capital facilities bill. There's work that we can and should be doing now. It's study. It's smaller scale, but it's the work that we can do in-house, so that if that money comes up in a time frame that works for us, we're able to tap into it for the other purposes. That having been said, I would ask if the council is of a mind to do so, that because Director Cazalia was able to join us, if you would like to hear from him, he can comment on as well, or if you feel you heard enough from Director Moranti, I'll leave that to you.
That's council pleasure. I don't know if we're going to hear anything new, but go ahead, Councilor Lamb.
I mean, I just think it is important to note that this is both our fire and our police in this building.
Yes.
This is not just the fire department. So when you look at the footprint of the roof, it's the entire complex that we're talking about, and the entire complex is leaking. It's so, that to me adds nothing against the fire department having a leaky roof, but having both of you have a leaky roof definitely doubles up the need and the demand that we act promptly and responsibly in this manner.
You can get it to the mic. Yeah.
I don't know, and I'm sorry.
Don't talk till you're at the mic.
I'm sorry I'm late. I had a prior engagement tonight. I don't know if Director Moranti or Mayor Bernard mentioned this. We also have a regional dispatch center. So that regional dispatch center potentially impacts our ambulance service, Clarksburg Police, Florida, and our other neighboring communities that they rely on us for backup and or regional dispatching. So I just wanted to bring that forward too as a regional dispatch center. And I can only say that we have a problem, and we're looking at potentially a long-term look forward before we even break ground on a new building. And again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating anything that's already been said. When we have massive tarps set up catching water and shooting it out a window, massive tarps, the tarp is at least as big as this room, covering a leaky roof or below the leaking roof, that's shooting water out, you have a problem. When men can't sleep in a bed because they get dripped on, water hitting them in the face, waking them up in the middle of the night, that's a problem. When our $30,000 live scan fingerprint machine has a leak, has a bucket catching water that is this far from that $30,000 machine that can't be moved, that's a real problem. If that leak moves about 18 inches and starts hitting that device, that's over $30,000 to replace that. So it's all these little, large things that really become a big problem, and we're there. We're there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lamb and LaForest and Buddington.
I don't mean to keep on talking, but I'm going to. I think this is another thing as we're looking at the challenges that we face as a community in recruiting and maintaining our police force and our fire department force. They're not just creature comforts. These are the things that are necessary to have a functional operation, a roof over your heads. And when we have, like you just mentioned, when you have guys that are actually sleeping in this building while they're on shift because they're on 24-hour shifts, having a roof over their heads that's not leaking is imperative to the success. So I just wanted to make that note.
LaForest and Buddington.
I just want to say that, I am really sorry that you've had to work in this building all these years. It's embarrassing.
Councilor Buddington.
Just want to speak in support of this borrowing order. It's clearly urgent, it's clearly necessary, and there are no short-term alternatives to it.
Councilor Wilkinson.
Just had a thought. We're all sitting here and listening to how bad this building is and the need to spend this money in order to alleviate the problem. Why the hell are we sending this to committee? Can't we just vote on this and we all know we need to do this. Why do we need to send it to committee?
By law, it has to go to a second reading, but I think
And
we
we're
should,
not actually slowing it down by going to committee.
and I think we all should tour the building. I think we should see how bad it is.
This motion actually is not sending it to committee.
Correct.
This
This is
motion
here.
is approving it.
Well,
The
with all the
committee
time.
is going to meet in the meantime. Okay? And I think for counselors, it's good just to see it for themselves.
I agree with Counselor Wilkinson's sentiment, but
Discussion from the public. Counselor. Mr.
Wants to be.
Sapienza.
Thank you. Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street, North Adams. I know $351,000 is a lot of money, but I think we have to think of the alternative if that roof fails catastrophically over the next few months. The cost of having to relocate our fire department and our police department and the dispatch center, I think, would be much more than the $351,000. Considering I don't think there's a lot of real estate available in the city of North Adams that could handle storing the fire apparatus and all the equipment that the police department needs to operate. So I think that it's unfortunate, but I think the city has to bite the bullet because catastrophic failure would be even more costly. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? Mr. Smith, Senior.
Thank you. Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I agree with Mr. Sapienza on the point he made. But also, we have to consider the fact that the fire department and our police department is two forces that protect the safety of the residents of the city. So I would say we should go forward with this because winter's coming up, and, if you get a heavy snowstorm, that roof may actually collapse. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Joseph Smith, 131 Oregon Road, Clarksburg. I also own a house in North Adams. One thing I just have a pet peeve about when we talk about money is we talk about how much we're borrowing, but we don't talk about how much we're actually spending to borrow. So I think that it would be helpful sometimes when we talk about these things to actually say what the total cost would be over the 20 years. And I'm not bringing that up to be a negative to accepting this. I'm bringing this up more to be a motivator to be getting angry about the fact that we keep putting this off, and that we're here at a place where we basically have to do this, and we might be paying for this, which I'm assuming is going to be more in the range of $500,000 or $600,000 by the time we're done over 20 years, for a building that might not be there anymore, or worse, it might be there. But my point is that I think it's better to talk about real numbers. I think it's helpful to the community to know how much it really is going to cost overall. And I think that it's important that we have a fire to do this. I wanted to also mention that in Clarksburg, after the school was voted down, the school improvement, Senator Hinz was helpful in getting a $500,000 appropriation for a roof there. Now, obviously, money comes from different things, but I think it'd be good if the administration and even members of the council were making more noise to the Capitol, because I really feel that Berkshire County doesn't get its just desserts for it being a rural community that really needs help from the state more. And I think we should make more noise about that. Thank you.
Mr. Yasky.
Henry Yeske, 62 Chase Ave. There's the police department roof and there's the fire department roof. For $351,000, it's pretty cheap. The other question I would say is, when you take the roof off, is it going to go all the way back down to where the ceiling members are, or is it just going to be a little bit, or are you going to make a repair on the entire roof?
Did we answer that before? Is it going to be?
Right down to the decking with its insulation.
Okay, it's going to go right down to the decking, okay? Any other questions or discussion from the public? Any discussion from the counselors? Right now, we have a motion to publish as required by law. This is a first reading, and it's a roll call vote. What?
So the motion only to publish or to
The
publish and
motion
go
is
to a second
publish
reading?
as required by law.
Well, it should be and go to a second reading.
Well, this, it automatically will go to a second reading, but,
Okay, well, normally.
yeah, it automatically, because it's a borrowing order. So that's why I did say it's the first reading.
Okay.
All right? Roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Vona.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. And then in the meantime, I believe Public Safety will be meeting.
We will coordinate a tour.
Okay. Paper number 11,726, Mayor's Communication number 86, recommending a borrowing order in the sum of $146,300 for upgrades to data and telephone systems. Without objection, we'll file the communication and move to the order. Paper number 11,727, an order authorizing the treasurer with the approval of the mayor to borrow the sum of $146,300 to update the data center and phone system under MGL Chapter 44, Section 20. Motion to publish, this is also same as the other one, right? Motion to publish
So move.
Second.
and discussion. Counselor Buddington, Counselor Harpen.
I'd like to express my appreciation to the mayor for this and of the preceding issue, just providing us enough detail that we can see the line-by-line costs. From my reading of this request for borrowing, I think these are at least justifiable, if not completely essential, upgrades. So I'm strongly in favor of this.
Counselor Harpen.
I agree with Counselor Buddington. This is definitely essential. Just since, we have been here in January, I think the email has gone down a few times, the phone system has gone down a few times, and, it's a necessity that we need as a city to run on an everyday basis. So this is definitely, I am for it. I just did have one question for the mayor. And that is, I'm just wondering why, if this is going to be taken out of the reserves?
Out of the Municipal Technology Fund.
Okay, so I'm not sure how the process works, if it's taken out of those funds, why we need a borrowing order.
So there's two ways we could have done this. We could have pulled it from in total from the Municipal Technology Fund and drawn down that balance, or the approach that we were suggesting is, and this would be a 5-year borrowing, which would net out to about $33,000 a year. The Municipal Tech Fund is replenished at about $36,000 a year, so it ends up being a wash in terms of the current balance of the fund, but it preserves that if in case we ever needed to do a significant a significant purchase or investment out of that fund. So again, there's two ways to do it. This just spreads out the cost over a couple of years.
Okay, so I'm sorry, how many years? is it
We were
gonna be?
looking at a 5-year borrowing.
5 years, so.
Counselor Wilkinson, Counselor Lamb.
Since we're talking about the IT department, I just am curious. When we did the budget, we budgeted as a line item for an assistant to the IT. Did we ever hire, through the chair to the mayor, did we ever hire such a person?
We had not. I have the rec with me. One of the things is now that we've got the data center study and we have the 2 projects, I'm comfortable moving forward with this project with the hire.
I'm sure there's some help needed in that department.
There's absolutely.
Thank you.
Counselor Lamb.
My question was actually very similar to Counselor Wilkinson's, so I'm not going to ask that one. The other thing I wanted to note was that these are the systems that allow all of the interworking parts of the city to work together.
Yes.
And as we saw when the cell phone tower went down a couple years ago and everybody felt like they were cut off from the universe for a little while, when your technology goes down, you want to make sure that your city services are still able to communicate in a secure manner and make sure that everyone's safe and sound. So, I think this, again, goes back to things that need to be updated over time. And the nice thing about this one is, by the way that it is funded through the Municipal Technology Fund, it does kind of give us, it's not falling directly on the taxpayers for the pay down over time, which I think is important to note. this is, it's strategic in that manner, so I appreciate that.
And I didn't include this in the communication, but I believe it's in Ms. Wall's memo. We haven't replaced the data center since 2011, so that's another reason to be making this investment at this time. It's due, if not past due.
Counselor Moran, Counselor Buddington.
Along with this is we kind of did vet some of this earlier this year in committee as well. So well needed, probably long overdue, and I'm sure it'll make Kathleen's job a lot easier, seeing how everything seems to be on the older side of things. So hopefully this will keep everything up and running and keeping the city heading forward.
Counselor Buddington.
Yes, if I may, through the chair to the mayor, can we have an estimate on what percentage we pay on borrowing? I recall that it's quite low most of the time, but I don't know how consistent that is.
We're looking at 4.5% on both of these borrowing issues.
Other counselors? Counselor LaForest?
So just to support what everyone else has said, particularly Counselor Lamb, I just want to read a couple of lines from Kathleen Wall's communication for the people that are watching, because this does touch on just about every area of the city. So this helps support information technology in City Hall, public safety, including police, fire, radio tower, mobile units, and the Drug Task Force, the Public School Administration, Drury High School, Brayton School, the Public Library, the City Yard, the Spitzer Center, the Armory, the Transfer Station, the Skating Rink, Campground, Water Filtration Plant, Housing Authority, and Joe Wolf Recreational Field. So, this is, not a small chunk of change, but it is well overdue. And as Councilor Moran pointed out, we did discuss this at the beginning of the year in committee, and Ms. Wall indicated at the time that, this was long overdue. So we're long overdue plus a few months, and so I support moving forward with this.
Other counselors? Mayor, Counselor LaForest just read off a fairly long list of all the different departments and buildings it covers. Is that, I don't think does it cover the school department upstairs, or is that just downstairs? Do they have their own phone data?
They have their own phone system. They're going to be bringing their data center in.
So that is something we're just moving from the other facility? They don't have to upgrade or do anything with theirs?
No, they're, do you want to speak to this?
As far as I know, the school department is their data center is gonna be a lateral move. They have a separate phone system. They're not gonna be going onto our phone system. The school administration, superintendent, and, the payroll, accounts payable, that system is just gonna be moving over, and they'll stay on our system. They'll transition over to the new data center, but it won't be anything that they'll see a change on the software side of it.
So the school department will be using the new data center
Yeah,
part of
just
this?
as they are now. They're on our data center now.
Oh, okay.
But it isn't for their phone system. It is for everything else. Their application software, they do some of their data storage here, and we do the backups and restore and disaster recovery for the financial system because they're on ours.
And is that the same with the schools? Because Councilor LaForest, just read off some schools, and how does
Well,
like Drury
the
High
Brayton School, the Brayton School is because the radio over IP system is coming out of Brayton. So it's connected through the MBI to the police station for public safety. So that's where Brayton comes in on that. But it isn't the school department or their school software. That's on the school side.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with this is, if the school is using any portion of this, does any of the funding come from the school department, or is it?
They just, normally, with our financial software and the maintenance that we pay on our financial software, any portion of that software, any modules that they use, they pay their portion of it. So, you know, we might have 20 modules in the finance, but, you know, they don't do like the real estate billing or any of that. Payroll, they pay half of that, so it's a good deal. And at one time, we brought in the Northern Berkshire School Union that was going to do it, so that helped to split off some of those costs too at one time.
So will we get payment from them that covers any of this?
That might be something to, that the administration might want to look at, but normally, they've just paid the software maintenance fees and, in that portion of it.
I just know sometimes getting funding and grants and things for education come in easier than just city hall department, so.
True.
Okay. All right, any other counselors? Discussion from the public. I did it again. You might as well just get electives. I keep calling you counselor anyway, so, Mr. Sapienza.
Okay, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. I have a question regarding this $146,300. Back on July 2nd, the council turned down an order appropriating the amount of $28,000 from the Municipal Tech Fund to do a study on what we needed. Is any of that $28,000 still up in the air going towards this 146, or is that already included? In other words, that money was
never appropriated.
Never appropriated. Is there any plans to appropriate that towards paying for the new equipment?
I mean, that was money coming out of,
That request to appropriate was not approved by the
Right.
council, therefore
Right.
those funds were
Yeah.
those funds remain
that really
in the account. So the
separate
balance of the account is what it always has been. That money was never withdrawn from the account.
Right. Are there any plans to use any of that money towards this at all, or is that just a whole separate entity
Well, that money was
altogether?
coming, Mayor, correct me, that money was originally coming from when you wanted that.
We proposed using the Municipal Technology Fund
Right.
for the IT study.
Right.
That money was not appropriated. Therefore, in a sense, that $28,000 remains in the balance of the account.
Right. And right now, we're not using any of the municipality tech fund, anyway. We're borrowing. So it's still, the money still sits there.
We're borrowing, and then the payback would be
Right.
against the Municipal Tech Fund.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
The only question I'd like to raise is, we didn't do the study, but the mayor mentioned something about data center study. Maybe he didn't mean study, I'm not sure, but just wondering how this plan was developed when the original idea was that an outside firm was needed. I actually spoke against the idea of an outside firm, so I'm not trying to, paint you into a corner here, but I'm just curious how we came about developing this plan when the feeling originally was that we needed the study, and where the second hire hasn't yet been made, where I think the idea that Councilor Forrest brought up at one point was how that filling in that second position might have helped towards fleshing out where the IT department was going to go. So I'm just curious how the plan was developed short of the study.
It was a recommendation from the Director of Management Information Systems.
Okay. Other counselors?
I just-
Yes, Counselor yes, Carbon.
I just have one question to the mayor. This is basically for hardware, right? There's no software services in this at all. So that's probably maybe a next phase that we would do, is some software services like financial packages or software that we could upgrade. I mean, I'm just wondering if that's something that you would be considering next. This is primarily hardware.
Possibly, but this is the first phase of the work, which is to upgrade the infrastructure. So this is the getting the house in order to look at those other options.
Okay, thanks.
One thing I'd like to, I don't know if it's correct or wrong, but I know in the past year, and I know Counselor Harpen, you brought it up, that we've had some phone and email issues, but was that anything to do with our technology, or was that outside Verizon?
Again, I'm going to ask Ms. Wall to come up, but it was Verizon and Crocker Communication issues outside of our network.
Okay. So that had nothing to do with our current equipment or software, correct?
No, On the email problem initially, that was a storage issue. And so the storage is going to be part of the data center improvements and upgrades are their hardware, servers, new firewalls, and more storage. Some of the phone issues were out of our, they're out of our hands. As soon as the administration wanted to move towards, a voice over IP system from a landline, a landline is 100% reliable, whereas, a voice over IP, there's more issues that come that can come up because you're on the internet and you've got other different hops basically that you go through and that you have to rely on to for your phone.
So even after this upgrade, we could still have those?
Quite, possibly, because one of them was, there was a Verizon, there was a fiber breakdown in Springfield. There's nothing, there's nothing that we could have done about that on our, but keeping our systems, with up-to-date hardware, up-to-date software. On the phone system, we are getting hardware and new software because the software is end of life. So some of this has, you're updating the hardware, but you're getting new operating systems. And then all of the applications right on top of that. The difference with the phone system is that is a hardware and a software upgrade, so that one is combined. But the rest of the data center is just mostly the hardware and the operating system, which the end users won't really see it, really.
Okay.
But it will be up to date.
Right. And I'm not sure if this question should go to you or the director. Does any of this affect dispatch, like 911 dispatch?
Well, 911 dispatch, the 911 equipment is completely segregated.
That's what I thought.
However, when calls come in and into our phone system, they're recorded. So there is an an interface between that, but it isn't a direct interface to the 911 system. And that's, by design.
Okay, thank you. Other counselors? This is a roll call vote this is the first reading and a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes?
Turpin,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
LaForest.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Paper number 11,729, communication submitted by Counselor Buddington regarding amending Council Rule Number 1. Counselor, would you like to make a motion? Or how do you want to do this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend our council rules as recommended in my communication. May I read that?
Go ahead.
It's quick. The current language reads,
Actually,
Okay.
why don't we
second?
get a second to put
I'll
it in
second.
discussion? Okay, Counselor Lamb. Okay, go ahead now. Yep.
okay, so specifically, this motion is to change rule number 1, which currently reads in part, standing committee meetings of the city council to which matters have been referred to the full council shall meet at City Hall. And I'm suggesting that we change that to standing committee meetings of the city council shall meet to discuss matters referred to them by the full council. So it's very simply removing the restriction that standing committees meet in City Hall, because I, for one, would like the flexibility to have some meetings in other locations.
Counselor Hopkins.
Looking at this fresh tonight, and I don't know what the rest of the rules read, but it seems like the current language is there strictly to say that they have to meet at City Hall. Why not just strike that entirely? Because committees meet anyway, right? As when things are referred to them.
Counselor Buddington.
Well, my thought was that, as stated currently, it serves two purposes, because it does specifically, I don't know if it's necessary, but that language does make it clear that committees must meet to deal with matters referred to them. I don't know, but.
Okay. And if I follow up, this came about because there was an idea that perhaps sometimes it would be helpful to meet somewhere other than City Hall. If we make these amendments, that allows that to happen, correct?
Yes.
I think it also came about because we were having a hard time getting a meeting in here.
Right.
Yes. Counselor Wilkinson and Counselor Lamb.
As much as I respect Counselor Buddington's thought here, we're going to have to disagree. Going to a city council meeting or going to a committee meeting is an official act. It should be handled in an official quorum, which is the city council's chambers. I find it hard to believe you're going to have trouble finding other public venues that meet ADA compliance, that meet all the other requisites for holding a legal meeting. Again, no disrespect to you, Councilor Buddington, but I just think this is a bad idea. I mean, I could call a meeting and say, okay, we're all going to meet at the State Street T. I mean, you know, it's just, this is so vaguely worded, it leaves anywhere in the world open to have a meeting. You could have it in your living room. You could have it in your basement. I have more respect for this body than to allow meetings to be held anywhere. So it's up to what the rest of the council wants to do, but I can't go along with this.
Thank you, Councilor Lamb.
A couple of things. The first one being, and again, Fresh Eyes actually is giving a little bit, because something I said earlier was around how committees can meet independent of the council making direct referrals. And I do worry that the new language actually pins us down to only things that are referred to us by the full council. So the city council basically says the standing committees meetings of the city council shall meet to discuss matters referred to them by the full council. It does not necessarily, I worry almost that narrows down our scope of view to be able to, so if something public safety centric came up and we just wanted to meet about it, does that mean that if it's not referred to us by the full council, we can't? So while it's a little bit different than what this was meant to address, that is just a linguistic thing that I feel like needs to be corrected in some manner. I do think, and no disrespect to Councilor Wilkinson, but I do think that having that flexibility to meet in other locations, for instance, when the hospital closed and having very large-scale meetings is not possible in these chambers, and being able to host it at something like the Church Street Center at MCLA, or being able to work within, have meetings in the communities that are most impacted by some of these issues to improve access is something of value. And, not to say that we're going to do that on a regular basis, but giving us the ability and bandwidth to approach those situations in a case-by-case basis, I think is something of value.
Councilor Harpin, Hopkins, LaForest.
I actually agree with Councilor Wilkinson and Councilor Buddington. So I'm kind of in the middle here because I think it's important that we do get the community involved, and maybe finding different avenues and different areas to have meetings would be helpful. Maybe if we had some meetings down at Greylock, maybe if we had some meetings at Uno, we can bring some more people in and get them involved in making some decisions and helping us out. So I think that's important. But then again, I also think that this is a little vague, and I would like to see a little more detail in it, and I would suggest something like this. Standing committee meetings of the City Council shall meet to discuss matters referred to them by the full council, and then add the section here, shall normally meet at City Hall. In other special occasions will meet at city-owned property. So I've heard Councilor Hopkins and others say that, sometimes we can meet at other places, and not something that we would normally do. So I think it would be, we could put that in there. Shall normally meet at City Hall, and other special occasions meet at city-owned property. So it's giving us the option of meeting at other places, but it's not something that we would normally do.
Councilor Hopkins.
And I think the intent from the general government discussion was that, yes, most meetings would still be held in City Hall, but just as Councilor Harpin said, give us some flexibility. And I can imagine plenty of circumstances where people might want to have some input, but not be able to get to this building. So why not make it us as councilors accessible in some other location? And I'm thinking specifically the West End, for instance.
Counselor LaForest, Counselor Moran.
So in the minority, but I feel very strongly against the language that's presented, both in theory and in application. First, in theory, with the exception of extraordinary circumstances, I feel very strongly that the legislative functions of the City Council should take place in our legislative chambers, and that is right here in City Council chambers in City Hall. Not to exclude anyone, this building is ADA compliant, there is sufficient parking, and when there is a meeting scheduled, people know where the meeting is going to be held, again, except in extraordinary circumstances. And that sort of segues into why I disagree with this in application, because the very week that there was an issue with the General Government Committee meeting being scheduled outside City Hall, and I pointed out that our rules stated that the meeting needed to be held here, there was on Facebook a post for one of the local school districts scurrying to find a new meeting venue for a school committee meeting that was supposed to take place that night because some facility had been overbooked. Now, our city website is very difficult to manage. We don't have a presence on Facebook. If there were such an issue, I don't know how we would alert the public as to where we were rescheduling a meeting. So again, with the exception of extraordinary circumstances, I think if people know that a city council committee meeting is being held on a Monday night at 6 o'clock, they're going to know to come here. In the absence of that, we're generating confusion because we don't have a way to disseminate the information easily. And, but I just feel, echoing once again, and then I'll stop, Councilor Wilkinson's concern, this is city council chambers.
I think it was Counselor Moran. We'll go Moran, Lamb, Buddington.
I guess my question is when we have had meetings, committee meetings at the DPW, we've had them at the water treatment facility.
Those weren't voting meetings, though.
They weren't voting meetings,
tours.
but we opened and we closed the meeting. So I'm just wondering if there's any circumstance that it needs to be meeting somewhere special, then I guess it would be vocalized here. But I agree with Councilor LaForest. I think, we start saying, I just last week went to a meeting at Greylock Works for a cannabis dispensary in the West End, and it's a big building. And you walked in and you didn't really know where to go, and you kind of wander. And I think this place is, you have parking, you come in, you have your meeting here. And I think if there was a reason that we do want to involve the public and have a meeting, a special meeting somewhere else, then that could be discussed here, it could be laid out here, and then the public could know in advance that we would have a separate meeting spot. So, yeah, I will be falling into the camp of, I think our meeting should be here at City Hall.
Counselor Buddington. Oh, sorry, Counselor Lamb, sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to push back again. And I'm saying this not because of ADA compliance necessarily, but I'm going to say it because the bus schedule around here ends at 6:45 p.m. So people who are reliant on public transportation in this community can't really get here unless they walk or take a taxi or get a ride from somebody.
We could change the time of the meeting.
So, well, I don't know that we would be able to change it earlier than 6 o'clock at night. Because getting here is one thing, but then getting home is another, and our meetings are unpredictable at an ending time.
You're right.
So what I would just note is that we're not talking about doing this all the time. We're talking about extenuating circumstances, and we're talking about likely situations that are impacting particular community areas, whether it's the West End or it's Mohawk Forest or wherever in our area that may be more reliant on those services and wouldn't be able to actually have their voices heard if the meetings are held here on issues that are particularly prudent to their particular needs and situations. So while I agree that the vast majority of our meetings should continue to be here, and we should not be looking at this as an opportunity to suddenly start hosting meetings at bars and hosting meetings in situations that are not formal settings, I strongly disagree that we should lock ourselves into this space when there are sections of our community that may find this building inaccessible, not just because of ramps, not just because of door handles, but because they actually can't get there. So that is, I'm not going to push back anymore on it, but that is why I am voting in agreement that we do need to, whatever the language is, that we do need to shift our policy to be a little bit more open to those situations.
Councilor Buddington.
3 points. The important one first. The reason that I support this, and I'm not speaking for the General Government Committee in its entirety because we aren't all entirely on the same page, but I feel as though more flexible meeting spaces can allow us to do better outreach to the community. We have some loyal people who show up at every single one of our meetings here, but I feel we could get more public input if we could sometimes, occasionally, take meetings to where the relevant constituencies are to get out of our cathedral of a city hall and get out where people are more likely to actually show up and find it and get a good reception for showing up at a meeting. The two small points addressing one of Councillor Wilkinson's concerns, and I recognize it's just one corner detail. ADA compliance is mandatory. That's a requirement at the state level. So any place that we have a meeting has to be accessible to the public and fully ADA compliant. And also, I'd note that our current rules, as worded, don't allow any committee meetings outside of City Hall. There isn't a carve-out for tours of buildings.
Councilor Harpin, Councilor Hopkins.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilor Buddington and Councilor Lamb. I do believe that this isn't going to happen the majority of the time, but I think there are times that we need to reach out to the community and we need to meet people where they're at. People cannot always get here, and we need to get to them. If we want people to be engaged in our community, then we need to go out and we need to reach them. And I think it's important that we do that on occasion. I'm not saying that we do it all the time, but I think there's going to be some times that, I mean, if we have issues, we have an issue going on right now with that's in community development with the Brayton area and in the Greylock area. And some of those people, they're having a hard time getting to the supermarket. So how are they going to get to City Hall? So I think that we should, I still say I would vote for this if we would amend it to say and add the section that says shall normally meet at City Hall and in all other special occasions will meet at city-owned property.
I'm not sure that we need to finish this tonight, but I agree with Councilor Harpin. I want the concept to go forward. I'm not sure this is the right language for right now.
Councilor LaForest.
I guess I'm confused because at the same meeting, we've heard a resolution demanding access to city council chambers, and we've heard now a communication saying we can meet elsewhere in the community. My second point
Unrelated, sorry.
Well, the logic follows whether it's unrelated or not. The other point is I understand the concern for public transportation, but if you want the community to be involved and you're going to have a meeting, say at Greylock School, but the folks from Mohawk Forest or other neighborhoods in the city can't access that because of the lack of public transportation, I don't know that that's a reason to move the meetings around either. This rule has worked for us. There hasn't been an issue having tours. If we're going to parse it out and say, oh, the rule doesn't permit tours, well, we've scheduled tours. We haven't voted on those tours. But, with the exception of a couple of extra phone calls, there hasn't been an issue scheduling meetings here. So
I oppose this as it's currently written. My opinion is, and I think Councilor LaForest said it, that all legislative functions and decisions, votes should take place here. I feel there are other options of how we can reach out throughout the community. It doesn't always have to be an official city council committee. If we talk about the recent motion that Councilor Cohen brought forward about food in the West End, I feel something like that could have been set up through discussion with the coalition. Something could have been set up that's not through the council, however the council could attend it, but I think there's ways of, if we need to reach different parts of the community where there are other groups out there that can host those, where we can attend, but it doesn't have to be specifically, the UNO Center can host events. The VFW can host events, and they can invite us. So, I'm just saying, we could go to the VFW and say, look, we need someone in this area that we want to have a discussion on this. Will you host this event? They can host the event. We can attend, we can hear the voices, but we don't hold that as an official legislative body. We're there more as a town hall kind of meeting. So I feel there are ways to reach out in those communities. I mean, every area, there's churches, there's halls, there's clubs that would host these, and it sort of then also gets us out of having to be the official open meeting laws, because now it's more of an actual neighborhood meeting versus we have to open it and close it and do all the official stuff we have to do. So I think there's ways around that. I think wording it when you say it doesn't have to be all the time, it's only during special occasions. What's that mean? Then you need a definition. What is a special occasion? Is it when City Hall is on fire? That's a special occasion. But I'm just saying, what dictates a special occasion? So if it's something that's happening in the West End, does that mean that the rest of the city really doesn't get to have a say because it's in the West End now? We do represent the whole city. We're not ward councilors. So I think there's ways of reaching the areas we need to reach. I feel this is where all legislative decision and official city council business can be held. And we bring voices all the time from around the city. That's part of our job. We live in different areas. We talk to people, and we bring them here. If they can't make it here, they call us, they email us, they post on Facebook. So there's many ways that people can still reach us. Councilor Harpen.
I think a special occasion is something that doesn't have to be defined. I think everybody knows what a special occasion is. A birthday is a special occasion. An anniversary is a special occasion. It's not something that happens on a regular basis. That's a special occasion, as I believe it should, I see it as a special occasion. It doesn't happen on a regular basis. And as far as reaching the community, I mean, yes, you're reaching people that are on Facebook. You're reaching people, in different areas that you mentioned, Council President, but there's a portion of this community that is not being reached. And that's what I want to advocate for. People that can't access Facebook, people that can't make it here, people that struggle to get on the bus. And I would advocate that we reach out to them as a body to get them involved in the community.
Councilor Lamb.
I'm going to 100% echo what Councilor Harpen just said. She said it far better than I would have been able to say just then, so thank you. You say that others can host, and yes, this is absolutely true. Other organizations do host meetings, and many times they're overlapping with one another, and we all get invitations to all of these things, and they're happening 24/7, 365, and that's an exaggeration, I admit. However, when you look at the number of groups that are hosting these things and the expectation that we can go and attend all of those and do it in our, wearing our council hat or wearing another hat that we might wear in this community, it's just not necessarily realistic to expect all councilors to show up to all of those things, to have all of those discussions and hear all of those voices. I would also say that, yes, many of us do take words that we hear from our fellow community members, from folks that raise concerns to us. Sometimes they wish to remain anonymous and bring those things forward. Sometimes they wish to, have a name assigned to the comments and concerns being raised. But there is a level of lost in translation when things are brought, we can try our best, and I know that we all do, but there's going to be a lost in translation moment where someone brings something forward to us, or multiple people bring things up to us, and they're somewhat related, but they don't 100% feather together, and we can try to present that here in these council chambers, and it's not necessarily going to cover everything that they would have gotten across if they were actually standing in front of us. So while, again, a special occasion, extenuating circumstance, whatever you want to use the phrasing for it, I think there is value in flexibility in these things. It's not something to be abused. It is not something to be used on the regular. But I do still firmly believe that having the flexibility for us to have that direct contact as a full council or as a full committee of this council with the specific communities that certain issues are being raised around is important. And again, not to say this is going to be happening all the time, but I still think that having that ability in the language and our actual rules that we operate under as this council is something of importance.
Counselor Buddington.
If I were to attend a public meeting hosted by, or just a meeting hosted by a community organization, along with another member of the Community Development Committee, I would not be able to participate in the discussion at that meeting, because the open meetings law would prohibit that, because that would
If
constitute
you're
deliberation.
discussing something the council would be voting on.
If we're discussing something that our committee could, yes, if an issue that our committee would take up.
But it would have to be something that you've assumed is going to be voted on. So counselors can attend meetings as long as they're not discussing something they're going to be voting on.
Right, but that's the very reason that a meeting hosted by a third party would not substitute for a committee meeting. It could not serve the same purpose.
Any other discussion? Counselor LaForest.
I just have one, and it may be a rhetorical question. If we're moving the meeting outside of council chambers to be accessible to members of the community who do not have transportation, is it the intention that the committees will have more than one meeting so that residents in every neighborhood can attend a meeting as opposed to one central meeting? Meaning, if we're going to move a meeting outside of City Hall from a central location, are we going to have a meeting at Greylock School and Colgrove School and Brayton School and McCann, and I don't know if there's a meeting place up at Franklin Court? You know, are we going to have 6 meetings to make sure that members of every neighborhood can attend a committee meeting? I want everybody to have access to city council and to our committee meetings, but I just feel like we're going down a rabbit's hole, and now we've spent 20 minutes talking about a rule that works.
Counselor Wilkinson.
There is a motion on the floor to accept as written here, I believe. But we've had a number of counselors, even though they agree with the concept of having meetings outside, don't agree with the present language. So I just want to clarify to other counselors, you vote on this now and you're voting as it is, rather than maybe you want to tweak the language a little bit.
Counselor Harpen.
So I would make a motion to add, if I can do that.
So we're,
Buddington's got to amend his.
what's that?
So Buddington has to withdraw his motion.
Unless she amends it. You can amend it.
And
Yeah, so you
can
make
I
a motion
amend
to
his-
amend by adding,
Yes, and I would like to put a comma after the end.
after full council.
After full council, and add shall normally meet at City Hall. And all other special occasions will meet at city-owned property.
If we get a second on that, can you please just write that out and hand it up? Do we have a second? Not hearing a second.
I'll second that.
All right, a second. then.
Yeah, so, yeah. Sorry, I had to read it through again in my head.
All right, so will you say that one more time, and then please, well, if it passes, we need it written, so.
Okay, okay, so I am just adding, shall normally meet at City Hall, and all other special occasions will meet at city-owned property.
Counselor LaForest.
What if, for example, we wanted to have a meeting at St. Elizabeth Parish Center, which is another large meeting space downtown? It's not owned by the city. Just concerned that as we parse this language out, we're confining ourselves more and more and actually limiting the places we can meet.
Counselor Hopkins and Counselor Buddington.
I feel like we've beaten this to death tonight. I would like to see Councilor Buddington take another stab at it and bring it back in the future.
I agree. Counselor Buddington.
I like it the way it is. I'm
Well,
resistant to.
if I may, then I'll vote no as it's proposed and amended tonight. But if it comes
Currently, it's
back
not amended.
correct.
So
Right,
right now,
but-
the
but-
discussion is on the amendment.
On the amendment,
And
correct.
we either need to vote or vote against the amendment.
Understood.
Counselor Buddington.
I oppose the amendment simply because I feel as though that the state limitation that it be accessible in an accessible location is sufficient without it needing to be on property actually owned by the city. And if I could also just tack on to that, even though I would prefer that it be passed the way it is, I'm happy to discuss further options at any length after the meeting.
Well, so we were going to be voting on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Let's vote on the amendment. So right now, we have an amendment that's, read it one more time. It will be after referred to them by the full council, comma,
Shall normally meet at City Hall, and all other special occasions will meet at city-owned property.
so let's do a,
So she amended. We had a motion.
correct. So she's
She's
amended.
amending the very first
Correct.
motion.
Right. Yep. So this is only, we're voting only on the amendment that Counselor Harpen has put forward. Let's do a roll call. Okay.
Buddington,
No?
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins,
No.
LaForest,
No.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moran,
No.
Wilkinson,
No.
Bona.
No.
Motion fails.
So now we're back to the original motion. Ready for a vote?
That's okay.
Okay.
Oh,
What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to preempt Councilor
No, if we're going to vote, that's great.
Okay. This is a, well, first, any discussion from the public on this? Mr. Smith?
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I'm very impressed that this was a very intelligent discussion, but there's no guarantee that if you change locations, the people are going to show up. You could use this as an example. How many people really fill a gallery in City Hall? Not many. Not everybody needs to take public transportation to attend these meetings. Some of them can drive. So I'm against the idea of moving it out of City Hall. People in this city are used to the fact that the city council meetings and the city government is negotiated out of this building. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Smith and then Mr. Canales. That doesn't get him points.
Mike Canales, 20 Myers Ave, Administrative Officer for the city. I just had a question of why, since the committee, these are rules that are and you place on yourselves, that leaving the rules as is, why you couldn't vote to hold a meeting somewhere else, basically a suspension of the rules to hold a single meeting. I believe that's what you do when you decide to hold a walkthrough meeting at any of the facilities that you're going to, such as public safety. So I think that right now you really don't need to change the rules. Just if there becomes an issue that, say, is very relevant to the West End and you want to hold it somewhere in a facility that accommodates it, that this committee, that the council itself would vote at a public meeting to hold it elsewhere, letting the community know in large what's happening. So I'm not sure why you couldn't do that because like I said, the rules are only enforceable on yourselves, by yourselves, because they're rules that you self-impose.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I just want to applaud the spirit of this resolution. I really think that in a community where you have a lot of fixed income individuals and you have a population that's aging, I think that the idea behind this is not to abuse what you're trying to do. I think that Councilor Forrest, who I really respect, has brought up, would you have a meeting in many schools? I think the idea behind this is having a meeting where probably an issue is more centric to a particular part of the city, perhaps the bike path or the issue with the food desert in the West End. And I think as long as this is applied responsibly, I think it actually could help with community engagement. I think overall, I like the spirit of this, and I hope that something can move forward in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Urban?
The concept, Roger Urban, Ashland Street, North Adams, the concept of holding meetings in other places is interesting, but I don't think it's going to solve your problem. And that is getting people who are interested in the function or the idea that's being brought up at that meeting to the meeting. If a person is really interested in going to talk about a situation, they'll be there. I'll give you an example. The bike path. Primarily affected at this point the West End, correct? When they had a public meeting here, the gallery was full. There was standing room only and a lively discussion. So if people want to discuss it, if people want to go and talk about a situation, they will show up. We hold our voting, by the way, in one specific place.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote.
So we're voting on the original.
We are voting on the
Original.
original motion, which is standing committee meetings of the city council shall meet to discuss matters referred to that,
It's his original motion.
yeah, it's his original motion. Yeah, Counselor Lamb.
I just want to make a quick statement. I actually am going, based on actually Mr. Canales' point that we can vote to suspend the rules in an extenuating circumstance. Instead of moving to this language, I am probably going to vote in favor of this. But I just wanted to put that out there as clarity as to why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote, because it'll be counter to what I've been arguing for
You're
the
gonna
last
vote-
half an hour.
You mean against it?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Whatever the majority in the room is currently voting.
I think it's split, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I think it's split.
Let's find out.
We'll see.
Let's find out, yes.
Counselor Harpen.
Yeah, I just want to, I agree. I am going to vote against this as well, just because I think it's too vague, and I think I've mentioned that before, so. I do agree with the concept, though.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Harpen,
No.
Hopkins,
No.
LaForest,
No.
Lamb,
No.
Moran,
No.
Wilkinson,
No.
Bona.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Mr. Canales, next time, talk first. All right. Paper number 11,730, application submitted by Cumberland Farms requesting a public hearing for an underground fuel storage located at 227 Ashland Street. Set public hearing for November 27th at 7:30. I will, I did talk with the mayor. I don't know if anyone saw the license, but it lists currently the city as the owner. And the reason why, because at the time of this license, the city is still the owner. When Cumberland Farms takes over the property, the license will change, showing them ownership. Is that correct, Mayor?
Correct.
Thank you. And we are on to, did you have something, Counselor Harpen?
Can we ask a question on this?
Uh,
Or are we
yeah.
waiting?
Oh, that's for the public, yeah, we just set the public hearing, so if
Okay.
you have a question, I'd probably bring that up at the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay?
'Cause they'll be here too.
Right, yeah, and they'll be here also, so. Yep, thank you. All right, committee reports or minutes. Community calendar of events. Oh, are we on committee or calendar events?
Calendar.
Okay, thank you, go ahead.
Thank you. At their request, volunteers working with Wreaths Across America have been putting small colored flags to mark the graves of local veterans at our cemeteries in preparation for a nationwide wreath-laying ceremony on December 15th. We ask family members who may be cleaning around family plots to please leave the markers in place. A ceremony will take place at the Veterans Memorial Park on December 15th at noon, followed by the presentation of the wreaths at our cemeteries. All are welcome to join, and more volunteers are needed. For more information or to make a donation, please visit the Facebook page at Wreaths Across America North Adams Cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other calendar events from the public? Not hearing any. Open forum. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. Last year, there was a mobile unit which indicated the speed of the drivers coming down East Main Street past the elementary school, Cold Grove Park Elementary School. And I think it was probably effective for the drivers coming down. Maybe some of them did not realize their speed was in excess of what it should be during the morning hours when the children are coming to school and when the children are leaving school. And I'm just wondering if that unit can be brought back this year for and be placed again at the school, so that it would help the drivers coming down East Main Street properly slow down for the safety of the children. Thank you.
Anyone else in open forum? Not hearing any. Mayor's concerns.
Thank you. And I will begin with two notes of thanks to the council for moving forward on the two borrowing items. I know these, again, are necessary capital investments we need to make, but I appreciate the understanding of where we need to go and that these are positioning for additional work that we need to do in the future. While I'm offering thanks, I want to thank the clerk and the assistant clerk for running a smooth election last week, and also offer thanks to the election wardens and inspectors who volunteered their time to work the polls. I understand we had turnout close to 2016. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was
50%.
50%, so great, thank you. I also want to thank everyone who organized and participated in our Veterans Day celebration on Sunday, November 11th. There was a terrific keynote by Sandra Key, who is a U.S. Navy veteran and the Deputy Vice Commander of the American Legion, who came out from New Bedford. The citywide food drive is currently ongoing through this Thursday, November 15th. That's a benefit for the Northern Berkshire Interfaith Action Initiative's Al Nelson Friendship Center Food Pantry. The donated items will be delivered to the pantry and weighed in on Friday, November 16th. So they're accepting donations of non-perishable food as well as personal care items, and there are collection boxes available in City Hall, the police and fire departments, the North Adams Public Schools, the Spitzer Center, and the North Adams Public Library. And if making a donation to help those in need isn't enough incentive, if you make a donation through the library, they're offering a Food for Fines program. This Friday is the November Northern Berkshire Community Coalition Forum on the theme of resiliency and recovery. There's a different time and location for that. They will be out of the Baptist Church, and it is from 9:30 to noon at the Green located at 85 Main Street. November 21st is the annual holiday tree lighting. That'll take place 6 p.m. in Monument Square. The Drury Band and Band Front will process up Main Street to kick off the festivities. I want to offer compliments to the band and Band Front for their participation in the Veterans Day observances as well. If it should be inclement weather that day, the tree lighting will move to Friday, November 30th. And this was reported in iBerkshires, but I want to offer onto the record thanks to Anne Marie Wright and her daughters, who donated the trees to the city in memory of Dr. Peter Wright, who was a Drury graduate and an administrator at McCann and Drury. The emergency services and the North Adams Rotary are partnering on a holiday toy drive on Saturday, November 24th from 10 to 3 at Walmart. They're collecting toys, hats, and mittens. There are also drop-off locations at the police and fire departments and Northern Berkshire EMS. The council spent quite a bit of time this evening on the issue of City Hall, and I want to announce that on Friday, December 14th at 4:15 p.m., there will be a casual concert presented by the students in the Kids for Harmony program in the lobby of City Hall. I am a huge fan of this program, and I really love the idea of bringing some music and to City Hall, but also opening up City Hall to the community, to the students, to the parents, and especially to the young people, so that we do make this building feel a little less imposing. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. There was enthusiastic response from the Kids for Harmony program, and if it goes well and captures community interest, I'd love to see look at other options for bringing some music on a periodic basis into the building. I do want to echo what Councilor Hopkins said about Wreaths Across America. The council may recall that Chris Maloney presented about the program to the council at their June 26th meeting. As the councilor noted, it's it's about placing remembrance wreaths on the graves of every veteran in the city. As of Veterans Day, they were still a couple hundred shy, so there's still interest in donation to support this program in advance of the wreath laying on December 15th. And I, again, just as a personal matter, this is a program that I'm a huge supporter of. And finally, because it will happen before our next meeting, I will wish everyone on the council, everyone in the chambers, and everyone in the community a happy Thanksgiving.
Liaison updates, councilors' concerns. Councilor Lamb.
So I wanted to just echo a happy Thanksgiving to everyone next week, and not to negatively impact that happy Thanksgiving, but the night before Thanksgiving has become one of the more dangerous nights for drunk driving accidents in the country. So just please be careful, make healthy decisions when you're out there enjoying the day before the holiday, and so everyone can have a joyous and happy Thanksgiving here and elsewhere.
I'd like to mention a couple things. One, I'd like to thank also DPW and the police who helped out with the election, and sort of to the mayor, I know we have a code enforcer now, and with winter and snow coming, I don't know, if the policy is going to change of how we enforce unshoveled parking or unshoveled sidewalks. I know it continually is always an issue, and sometimes I feel the city's lax on that, but that we've also haven't had a code enforcer for a long time either. And also with that, I know parking, I don't know, I didn't hear a code red go out this year for parking off the streets. I'm assuming most people are getting it by now, but I don't know if they're still finding cars on the street. But if a code red does go out, my one thing that bugs me, I am still seeing a lot of cars parking on sidewalks.
And beginning this evening, the department will be out doing warnings, not tickets. And I think this is especially timely because there is the possibility of some inclement weather toward the end of this week.
Right, you're not allowed to say that.
Possibility?
Didn't say the word, so it's fine.
All right. Other liaison council concern, yes, Councilor LaForest.
Just building on what the mayor said about the Christmas tree lighting, I noticed that the DPW workers were out in miserable weather putting lights on the trees, so just want to thank them for their hard work and certainly extend that also to the police, fire, and EMS, who have to do their good work in miserable weather all winter long too, and keeping us safe. So thank you.
Director Maranti was also mentioning it's wire and alarm.
Oh,
So
all right. I'm sorry.
Make sure we get that.
Wire and alarm division.
I don't know if anyone was downtown, but I guess I never realized in the past, but I was in my store, and all of a sudden I look, and I see the tree, but what caught my attention, I realized they play Christmas music as the tree is going down the streets. So it was cute. All right, anyone else? Licenses, I don't think we have any, right? Nope, no licenses, no correspondence. Motion to adjourn in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?